Konnichiwa, I'm Keiko Nakamura, 72 years old, and today I want to talk about something that nobody discusses enough when they talk about decluttering: maintenance. Everyone focuses on the big declutter, the weekend project, the dramatic before and after, the bags filled and donated, and that work is real and necessary. I've talked about it in previous conversations: the emotional weight of letting go, the specific categories that accumulate, the psychological traps that keep us stuck. But here is what most people discover after the big declutter. Within months, sometimes weeks, the clutter begins returning, not all at once, quietly. One item here, one item there. A surface that was clear starts collecting things again. A drawer that was organized begins filling. And then one day you look around and wonder how you ended up back where you started. This is not a failure of willpower. It is the absence of daily habit. A decluttered home is not a permanent state you achieve once. It is a condition you maintain through small, consistent, daily actions. In Japan, this understanding is embedded in how we think about home. Cleanliness and order are not weekend projects. They are daily practices as natural as eating and sleeping. The home is tended, not periodically overhauled. I learned this as a girl in Osaka. My mother maintained our home with a kind of quiet daily rhythm that I absorbed without fully understanding it until I was much older. When I moved to Brazil in 1987, that rhythm was disrupted. New country, new language, 3 children, a business to build, a life to construct from very little. The daily habits slipped, the accumulation began, and over decades, the home that should have been a place of rest became something I had to manage. After Hiroshi passed, after I finally did the deep work of decluttering, I understood something clearly. The work of clearing was only half the answer. The other half was learning, finally properly learning, the daily habits my mother had always practiced. These 7 habits are what I do now, every day. They take very little time individually. Together, they keep my apartment in the condition I worked hard to achieve. Let me share them with you. Habit number 1: handle mail and paper the moment it arrives. Paper is one of the fastest ways a clear home becomes cluttered again. It arrives daily. It accumulates silently. And unlike physical objects, it doesn't look like clutter until suddenly there is an enormous pile of it covering a surface, and you cannot remember what is important and what is not. In Japan, we have a cultural aversion to churchira, shita, mono, scattered, disorganized small things. Paper left unaddressed is the definition of churchira. It sits and spreads and multiplies. My rule, which I practice without exception: mail is handled the moment I bring it inside. I stand near the entrance. I don't carry it to a table or a counter where it might be set down and forgotten, and I sort immediately. Most of it goes directly into recycling. Advertisements, catalogs, irrelevant circulars. These do not enter my living space. They go from my hand to the recycling bin without making a stop anywhere else. Anything requiring actual attention, a bill, a letter from someone, something that needs a response or action, goes into a single folder I keep near the entrance, specifically for this purpose. One folder, not a pile. A folder with a specific place. Once a week, on a consistent day, for me it is Thursday morning, I sit with that folder and address everything in it. Pay what needs paying, respond to what needs responding, file what needs filing. At the end of that session, the folder is empty and I begin the following week fresh. The key is that paper never accumulates on surfaces. It either goes to recycling immediately or into the folder immediately. No third option. No, I'll deal with this later. Placed on the kitchen counter where it will sit for 3 weeks. This single habit prevents an enormous category of visual clutter. Implement it this week and you will notice the difference within days. Habit number 2. Clean dishes immediately after every meal. In Japanese home culture, the meal does not end when the eating ends. The meal ends when the kitchen is restored. These are understood as part of the same event, not separate activities. I ate this way as a child. When I set up my own household, First in the small apartment Hiroshi and I rented when we first arrived in Brazil, then in the larger home where we raised our children. I maintained this habit through busy years because it had been so thoroughly absorbed that doing it any other way felt strange. Dishes left after a meal are not neutral. They are active clutter. They make the kitchen feel burdened. They create a task that grows heavier the longer it waits, both practically, as food dries and cleaning becomes harder, and psychologically, as the undone task occupies mental space. The reframe that makes this habit sustainable: cleaning up is part of the meal, not a separate, unpleasant task that follows the pleasant task of eating, the same event continuing through its natural completion. For those who are cooking for one, as I am now, this is especially easy. A meal for one generates perhaps 15 minutes of cleanup at most, usually less. For those cooking for families or hosting, it still takes far less time done immediately than done after everything has dried and settled. Wash, dry, put away, or load the dishwasher and start it. Every time, the kitchen that greets you tomorrow morning will feel like a gift you gave yourself the night before. Habit number 3. Make your bed every morning. I know this habit appears on every list of this type. I include it anyway because it is on every list for a reason. It actually works, and the reason it works is more interesting than people realize. Making the bed is not primarily about the bed. It is about establishing the psychological tone of the day in the room where the day begins. In Japanese aesthetics, totonata means arranged, composed, in good order. A made bed creates totonata in the bedroom from the first moments of waking. And what researchers have found, and what my own experience confirms, is that this single act of order in the morning makes subsequent acts of order throughout the day more likely. The bed being made makes you slightly more inclined to put clothing away rather than leaving it on a chair, which makes you slightly more inclined to maintain order elsewhere. Small ordered acts compound. The opposite is equally true. A room that begins the day disordered sends a subtle signal that disorder is acceptable here. That signal spreads. I make my bed every morning within minutes of rising, before tea, before anything else. It takes 3 minutes. It costs nothing. And it begins my day in a space that feels composed and intentional rather than disheveled. For those who live with partners, children, or others, this habit is also quietly instructive. When children grow up in homes where beds are made as a matter of daily course, they absorb this as simply what one does. The culture of a household is built from exactly these small, consistent acts. 3 minutes, every morning, without exception. Habit number 4, keep kitchen counters clear. This habit changed my daily experience of my kitchen more than any other single thing. Clear counters, completely clear, except for the 1 or 2 items in permanent active use. For me, that means my electric kettle, because I make green tea multiple times daily, and the kettle is genuinely in constant use. A small wooden tray where I keep my daily tea preparation items. A single cup, a small tin of tea, a bamboo whisk. These stay out because they are used every day, multiple times, and because I have arranged them intentionally so they are also pleasant to look at. Everything else, every appliance, every item, has a home in a cabinet or drawer and returns there after each use. The argument for leaving appliances on counters is convenience. I understand this argument. I made it myself for years. The toaster is easier to reach if it's already out. The blender is quicker to use if I don't have to retrieve it. But here is what I actually found when I tracked usage honestly. My toaster was used perhaps 3 or 4 minutes on the mornings I used it. The rest of each day, all of it, it occupied counter space and contributed visual noise. The convenience of not having to open a cabinet door saved me perhaps 30 seconds. The cost was a counter that always felt slightly busy, slightly cluttered, regardless of how clean everything was. Clear counters make a kitchen feel calm. They make cooking feel like a pleasure rather than a negotiation around objects. They make cleaning the counter, which needs to happen daily, quick and complete rather than involving moving things around. Put everything away. Every time. Return it to its home after each use. The 30 extra seconds are genuinely worth what they purchase in daily peace. Habit number 5. Complete 2-minute tasks immediately. This habit I first encountered described by an American writer, but it aligns so precisely with Japanese Kaizen, the philosophy of continuous small improvement, that I adopted it immediately and have practiced it ever since. The rule: if a task takes 2 minutes or less, do it now. Do not defer it. Do not add it to a list. Do not tell yourself you'll get to it later. 2 minutes or less, do it immediately. The reason this matters for home maintenance specifically is that small undone tasks accumulate into a background sense of disorder and incompleteness that is surprisingly draining. Each individual task seems trivial, too small to be worth the mental note, but also somehow never quite urgent enough to address immediately, so it waits. And then there are 10 of them waiting. And then the home has a feeling of things undone that is disproportionate to the actual size of each individual task. The soap dispenser is empty. 2 minutes to refill it. Do it now, not later. A light bulb has burned out. 2 minutes to replace it. Do it now. A drawer was left slightly open. 10 seconds to close it properly. Do it now. A chair was pulled out from the table and left there. 30 seconds to replace it. Do it now. None of these tasks is significant. All of them, deferred and accumulated, create a home that feels perpetually in slight disorder. All of them, addressed immediately, maintain a home that feels tended. I practice this consciously throughout my day. I notice something small that needs doing. I assess. 2 minutes or less? If yes, I do it immediately. The habit, once established, becomes almost automatic. The home remains in a state of ongoing small maintenance rather than accumulating a list of small neglects. Habit number 6, a brief evening walkthrough. Every evening, before I settle in for the night, I walk through my apartment once, the entire apartment. It takes perhaps 5 minutes. I am not deep cleaning. I am not organizing. I am simply doing what sailors call securing the ship, ensuring that everything is in its proper place before the day ends, so that the morning begins in order rather than disorder. What does this look like practically? A cushion that was displaced goes back. A book left on the table goes to its shelf or to the bedside table if I'm still reading it. A glass left in the living room goes to the kitchen. The shoes I wore today go to their designated spot. The bag I carried goes to where bags belong. Small things, each taking seconds. The cumulative effect: I wake every morning to a home that is ready for the day. Nothing left from yesterday to navigate around or feel vaguely guilty about. The morning has a quality of freshness that is genuinely difficult to achieve if the previous evening was not tidied. In Japan, this evening tidying is related to the concept of katazukeru, putting things in order, returning them to their rightful place. It is understood as a form of respect for the home itself. The home is a living space deserving of daily care, not a storage container to be sorted periodically. 5 minutes in the evening. Walk through every room. Return what was displaced. End the day with the home in order. Begin the next day the same way. This single habit, consistently practiced, creates a completely different experience of home. Try it for 1 week and notice what changes in how you feel when you wake up. Habit number 7. The immediate response to overfilled spaces. The final habit is the one that prevents reaccumulation most directly, and it is perhaps the most elegantly simple of all 7. The rule: whenever you encounter a space that feels overfull, a drawer that is difficult to close, a shelf where things are crowded, a cabinet where items are stacked awkwardly, you respond immediately, not by reorganizing more cleverly to fit more in, by removing something right then. not someday, now. Open that drawer. Identify 1, 2, 3 items that don't genuinely belong there or that you don't genuinely need. Remove them immediately to your donation bag or discard them. Close the drawer. It now closes easily. This habit is based on a truth that took me years to fully absorb. Overfull spaces don't solve themselves. They get more overfull. Each time something is added to an already crowded space, the friction of that space increases slightly. It becomes slightly harder to find what you need, slightly more annoying to close, slightly more visually overwhelming. Left unaddressed, the space becomes progressively more problematic. But the response doesn't require a major project. It requires 3 minutes of honest assessment and the willingness to remove a few items in the moment you notice the problem. I keep a small basket near my entrance, a beautiful woven basket that was a gift from a neighbor, specifically designated as my ongoing donation collection. When I encounter an overfull space and remove items, they go directly into this basket. When the basket is full, I make one trip to donate. The basket then waits to be filled again. This system means that releasing items is not an event. It is not a project I schedule and dread. It is an ongoing small flow. Things that no longer fit my life moving out of my home continuously, in small amounts, without drama. The home stays decluttered not because I completed a massive declutter once, but because I maintain a steady and gentle release of what is no longer needed. Why these 7 habits together create something more than anyone alone. Let me be direct about what these 7 habits produce in combination, because I think it's important to understand this as a system rather than 7 separate tips. Mail-handled immediately means paper never accumulates. Dishes cleaned after meals means the kitchen is always functional and welcoming. The bed made every morning means the day begins in composed space. Clear counters mean the kitchen never feels burdened. 2-minute tasks completed immediately mean the home never accumulates a backlog of small neglects. The evening walk-through means each morning begins in order. The immediate response to overfull spaces means accumulation is continuously interrupted before it establishes itself. Together, these habits create something that is genuinely different from a home that is periodically cleaned and occasionally decluttered. They create a home that is maintained as a living, tended space, one that consistently supports the life happening inside it rather than competing with it for attention and energy. I am 72 years old. I live alone. My apartment is approximately 60 square meters. It is never perfect. I am a person who sews, who cooks, who has ongoing projects, who has a full and active daily life within these walls. But it is consistently orderly. It consistently feels calm. It consistently supports rather than drains me. That is not because I am naturally tidy. Ask my children, and they will tell you stories about the years when our family home in São Paulo was chaotic in the warm, full way of a busy household. I am not a naturally minimalist person. I am a person who loves beautiful objects, meaningful things, the particular richness of a life lived fully. But I have learned that a life lived fully is better supported by a maintained home than by a cluttered one. And maintenance is daily habit, not periodic heroic effort. These 7 habits require perhaps 20 to 30 minutes of your day in total. Many of them require far less. What they give back is a home that consistently feels like rest, like the place you want to return to, rather than the place that is waiting for your attention. Begin with one habit, the one that feels most immediately relevant to how your home is currently behaving. Practice it consistently for 2 weeks until it is genuinely automatic. Then add another. Within 2 months, you will have all 7, and you will wonder, as I did, why nobody told you this was all it took. I want to hear from you. Which of these 7 habits is already part of your daily life? And which one do you think would make the biggest difference if you started it this week? Tell me in the comments. I read every response, and your answer often becomes part of the conversation that helps someone else. Arigatou gozaimasu.